In the middle of the Cambodian jungle, hidden beneath centuries of vines and silence, stands a city so vast, so magnificent, so impossibly complex, that when European explorers first discovered it in the 1860s, they refused to believe that Asians had built it. They were wrong, and what they found was the greatest mystery in human history. This is the story of the Khmer Empire, a civilization that built the largest city on Earth before London, before Paris, before Rome had reached its peak. This is what history never told you about the Khmer Empire. It began in the year 802 AD. In the Kulin Mountains of what is now Cambodia, a king named Jayavarman II stood before his people and declared himself Chakravartin, the God King, the divine ruler of the universe, a king so sacred that to look upon his face was an act of worship. From this single declaration, the Khmer Empire was born, and for the next 6 centuries, it would become the dominant power in all of Southeast Asia. At its peak in the 12th century, the Khmer Empire controlled a territory stretching across modern Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. Its capital city, Angkor, was home to nearly 1 million people, at a time when London had fewer than 50,000. Angkor was not just the largest city on Earth. It was the most sophisticated urban complex ever built in the pre-industrial world, covering more than 1,000 square kilometers of engineered landscape. And at the center of this empire stood Angkor Wat. Built by King Suryavarman II in the early 12th century, it remains the largest religious structure ever constructed by human hands. The Khmer used more stone to build Angkor than the ancient Egyptians used for all the pyramids combined. But the most extraordinary achievement of the Khmer was not their temples, it was their water. Angkor was built on an impossible foundation, a tropical environment with catastrophic seasonal flooding, followed by months of total drought. To survive, the Khmer engineers created the most sophisticated water management system the ancient world had ever seen. Massive reservoirs called barrays, some holding more water than 20 great pyramids stacked together. For 5 centuries, this system fed nearly 1 million people. It was, by any measure, an engineering miracle. But miracles have a weakness, and the weakness of the Khmer water system was invisible until it was too late. The first crack appeared in the 13th century. The climate was changing. Monsoons became erratic. Years of devastating drought were followed by sudden catastrophic flooding. The carefully engineered canals that had fed the empire for 5 centuries began to clog with sediment. Angkor's engineers worked desperately to save the system, but they had no experience with this kind of climatic instability. Food production collapsed. People began to leave, not in a panic, but slowly, quietly, family by family, moving south toward the Mekong River, where trade was more reliable than farming. The empire began to hollow out from the inside. The second force was religion. For 5 centuries, the Khmer kings had ruled as god kings, divine beings whose power was absolute. But in the 13th century, Theravada Buddhism spread across Southeast Asia, and it carried with it a revolutionary idea that the divine king was no more sacred than the farmer in his field. The last great stone temple at Angkor was built in 1295. The god-king ideology that had held the empire together for 5 centuries was simply over. Without the sacred authority of the god-king, the elaborate bureaucracy that maintained the water system began to collapse. The third force was war. The Thai kingdom of Ayutthaya, founded in 1351, launched repeated attacks on Angkor. In 1369, in 1389, in 1393, each attack weakened the empire further. Each attack drove more people south. Each attack eroded the population and the tax base that kept the water system alive. The Khmer fought back. but they were fighting an enemy with fresh armies, fresh ideology, and a rising star, while Angkor was slowly collapsing from within. The fourth and final force was the most silent of all. Began to follow the trade. International maritime commerce with China was expanding rapidly. The Mekong Delta offered access to the South China Sea. The abandonment of Angkor was not a sudden catastrophe. It was a slow migration. The city did not fall, it emptied. Over a century, Angkor's 1 million inhabitants dispersed. By the time the Siamese army of Ayutthaya sacked Angkor in 1431, they found a city that was already largely empty. The final blow fell on a ghost. The jungle reclaimed Angkor almost immediately. By the time French explorers stumbled upon it in 1863, the locals knew it only as the ruins of the gods. But they were built by human hands, and they were lost by human choices. The choice to ignore the limits of the environment. How many great civilizations in our world are making the same mistakes right now? Ignoring environmental warning signs, fighting wars on their borders, while their infrastructure silently decays at home. History does not repeat itself, but it rhymes, loudly. Subscribe to Forgotten Thrones. Every week, we uncover the stories history tried to bury, because the past is never really gone, it's just forgotten.